Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So today we will study from the 45th to the 47th verse of Vivekachudamani, where in a very general way the means to self-realization has been described. Before Shankaracharya enters into the very categorical study of the process of self-realization, here in these three slokas, three verses, he is giving a very general overview of the means of self-realization. So the 45th sloka, what it says, Vedantartha vicharena jayate jnanam uttamam tena atyantika sansara dukkhanasha bhavati anu. So Vedantartha vicharena, reasoning on the meaning of the Vedanta, Jayate, leads to Jnanam Uttamam. It leads to the knowledge per excellence. So we will go to the discussion that what it's meant by knowledge per excellence, the supreme knowledge. So reasoning on the meaning of the Vedanta, that is a vichara, that can lead to the efficient knowledge, the knowledge per excellence. And what that follows after that, which immediately is followed by the total annihilation of misery, sansara dukkhanasha, that the misery which is born of this relative existence, samsara, samsarate iti samsara, that everything here is transient, is a flow. Samsara means, samsarate means that which is flowing. Everything is flowing here. Nothing is permanent. It's transient. In this world of transience, that all the misery that is the product of that transience is annihilated when one, through the reasoning of the words of the Shruti, of the Vedanta, reaches that, attains that knowledge per excellence. So, what actually is speaking of, what's the vichara means here? Vichara in our Vedanta tradition means Sravana, Manana, followed with Nididhyasana. So I hear the Shruti from the mouth of my Guru, from the words of my Guru. After hearing, I should have Shraddha, should faith, that there may be lot of gap in understanding. Because he is speaking from his realization, my mind is having certain limitation, I am not yet capable of understanding the import of the Vedanta with my present state of mind. So I have Shraddha, I have faith in the words of Guru, and then with that faith, knowing very well that the words of Guru cannot be false, cannot be something which is superficial. It must have some profound meaning. Let me try to understand it through cogitation. Constantly I cogitate upon the words of my Guru, words of the Shruti after hearing. That's next is Manana. So when we do Manana, constantly through the process of question and answer and one's own mental cogitation, we will find that there are layers of understanding is getting clearer and clearer. There are layers of understanding. For the constant cogitation, the meaning becomes clear. And then at last I find that I do have an intellectual conviction of what the scripture has said and what has been again instructed to me by my Guru. The Guru has instructed me following the dictums, following the lines of the scriptures. And he is the authority. He himself has practiced based on the truths of the scriptures and went to the realization. And from that state of realization, he comes down to instruct us on the ways of spiritual living. So after that, what you say, that's through the thorough cogitation, I have came to that intellectual conviction that yes, the words of the scriptures, the words of Guru is something which speaks of truth. But that intellectual conviction alone is not sufficient. That intellectual conviction has to be transformed into realization. As we find that Swami Vivekananda used to say that sometimes after reading Vedanta, we feel, though I have realized, I am the Atman. Nothing can in any way affect me. And I think with this knowledge, I can face all the challenges in my life. And when I am in the turmoil of life, I find where my vichara has gone. It doesn't in any way help me to face the challenges of life. Why? Because it's a mere intellectual conviction. That intellectual conviction now through the process of nididhyasana, sravana, manana, nididhyasana, has to be transformed into realization. So nididhyasana is what? Nididhyasana is a constant contemplation on your intellectual conviction. That after hearing from my spiritual teacher that I am in essence the conscious principle, I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses, I am separate from it. I am the witness as the conscious principle of my body-mind complex, but I am in no way identified with it. I have developed this intellectual conviction. Now, based on this conviction, my meditation starts. Whatever will be the meditation, whether you are meditating on the idea that I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, or you are meditating on some deity, whether it is Shiva or Vishnu or whatever it may be. What's the basic concept is the same. When I say I am the Atman, I know I am the self. I am not this body-mind complex. On that I am repeatedly meditating. And we may think that the devotee is somehow thinking of a dualistic idea. Yes, the idea is dualistic, but the basic thing is the same. He is also meditating on the conscious principle. How? When a devotee is meditating on any form of God, what's the idea? That God is infinite, He is eternal. I myself in essence am eternal. This body will pass off, this body will die, will fall off, but the real me is going to be there through eternity. It was, it is, it will be, and it is in eternal association with the divine. So you will find even for a devotee, the idea of this limited existence is being negated with the idea that I am the conscious principle, the essence in me is the same essence in my Lord, and we are one as far as the essence is concerned. As per the manifestation, He is the Lord. He is Maya Dhish. He is the Lord of the Maya, of this Prapancha. And I am Maya Dhin. I am within the bounds of it. As per manifestation, this difference is there. But as per the essence is concerned, I am conscious principle. He is also that conscious principle. So there we are identified. A devotee also is meditating on that. As we find even in the Bible, we find that Jesus is very nicely depicting this idea by saying, worship the Spirit by the Spirit. So if you are meditating that I am this body-mind complex, I am praying to God, that is a very materialistic prayer. Why? You will find that I think this life to be the be-all and end-all of my existence. God is just the means to provide me the ends which is related to the world. So where God is the means, world is the end, that is not the true spirituality. That's to a certain extent materialism. So the true spirituality is worship the Spirit by the Spirit. I know I am the Spirit. God in essence is the Spirit. Both are eternal. I want to be in eternal association with that. So in both the cases you will find the idea of that I am the self is the predominant factor. So nididhyasana is on that. Whether you are a bhakta or a jnana, you through your nididhyasana is constantly repeating through your mantra, whether it is Aham Brahmasmi or it is the name of particular aspect of divinity. You are constantly repeating it to always recapitulate. Remember the fact, be aware of the fact that you are the conscious principle. This meditation, nididhyasana, at last will take you to the realization that you are the self. And when that realization happens, then that knowledge is called knowledge par excellence. The intellectual conviction which you get through manana, that is knowledge, that is jnana. But jnana uttamam is the knowledge which comes through the nididhyasana and takes you to the realization. That how that realization happens, as we again and again repeat, that when you are resorting to the process of meditation, nididhyasana, by repeating that same idea again and again, you are as if hammering to the idea of the limited sense of your ego, ahankara. Our bondage is because of that ego. We have thousands of desires. Sanskaras are there. All these desires are like the individual mental modules. They have a fixed stimuli-response conditioning. I see a particular dish, I get drawn towards it. That stimuli finds expression as the response. I am drawn towards it. I see someone whom I don't like, I feel like moving away, be indifferent towards him, run away from him. So that stimuli results in that type of response. So you will find there are innumerable such stimuli-response conditioning. Each of this stimuli-response conditioning is just like a particular mental module. They are like the spikes of the will. The hub of the will is your ego. All your likes and dislikes are connected with that hub. If you remove one of the spike, sometimes I think spirituality means consciously trying to get rid of a particular attachment. It is required. But that is not all. You may get rid of one attachment, but there are so many other innumerable attachments. They're still there to hold intact your limited personality. So, what's the way out? The immediate obsessions which are disturbing me, that I have to, with my resolution, I have to get rid of them. Otherwise, I cannot keep my mind calm. They will be constantly disturbing me. So all the manifested desires have to be controlled through conscious renunciation. So that is the vairagya. And then abhyasa. This has a long-term effect. Yes, for immediately calming down my mind, all the desires which are manifested, that I am subduing. But that is not sufficient. There are other desires. One may go, the other desire may again manifest. So I have to get rid of the hub with which all the spikes are connected. Nididhyasana is the process to hammer out that hub. Why? That hub is the idea of the limited individuality. All my likes and dislikes are associated, are attached to that idea of that limited individuality. All. I like, I hate, whatever it is all I. When you are constantly meditating on the idea that you are the self, you are hammering on that idea of that ego. And when that meditation is intense, at last it do enable you, allow you, effectualize. What is the effect happens? That you remove the hub. The hub is removed. And what happens? All these innumerable desires, they all collapse once for all at a single go. The hub is removed, all the spikes fall off. So our chitta, our mind stuff is actually having this ahankara and all these samskaras which are linked with that ahankara. So the moment you succeed in getting rid of the hub, the chitta for some time, for it being subsides, falls off. And then what happens? Our mind is just like the prism. As a white light is passing through the prism to break into spectrum. But if the prism is taken out, what happens? The entire spectrum merges with the white light. So it is the realization of all the mystics. They realize that they are that conscious principle. The moment that ego is being hammered out and all the spikes falls off, just for the time being, helping you to get rid of the mind with all its, the mind stuff, the chitta, with all its innumerable desires. It calms down, it falls off, and you have the direct perception of the truth. It is something ineffable, it cannot be described, but at the same time it is noetic. Means you know, I have realized something. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, when you taste the clarified butter, can you explain? You cannot explain. But do you know the taste? Yeah, I know. I've experienced. He gives other example, a mother's love. Can a mother explain someone who is not the mother that what mother's love is? She cannot explain. But can she experience? Yes, she experienced. So it is something experienceable, but it is not describable. Once you go that, and from that state, when you come back, Vyuthana, for you the world has changed. It has totally transformed. Now renunciation is no more something which needs resolution. It becomes automatic. You are a total transformed personality. As Swami Vivekachudamani used to give a very nice example, that when he was passing through the deserts of Rajasthan as a wandering monk, he was very thirsty. He was in search of water, and then suddenly he saw a huge reservoir at a distance. He started proceeding towards it, and then suddenly he saw that reservoir has vanished. It's no more there. And then it struck him. What? That from my childhood, I have heard about mirage. I have read it in my textbook. After reading, I had an intellectual conviction that I know what mirage is. It was an intellectual conviction. But for the first time, I experienced that what mirage is. And now, what's the outcome? Next day, when I'm again passing through the desert, again I'm thirsty, again I see the reservoir. But there's a huge difference. Yesterday, it dragged me. Today, it cannot drag me. I know it's a mere projection. So I had that renunciation has become spontaneous. The detachment has become spontaneous. As Ramakrishna used to say, that renunciation, the real renunciation cannot be forced. Just like in a wound, there is a scab over the wound when it is healing. And sometimes the children, you will find that because they are impatient, they try to move out they scratch out the scab. And what will happen? The wound will lacerate. It won't heal. You have to allow the scab to fall off. So Sri Ramakrishna is also saying that renunciation happens spontaneously. When through nididhyasana, you go to that realization. And then, this what has happened, now nothing can really affect you. Even this prapancha, this world, again, when from that state of samadhi you come down, there's a vyuthana. But now you're a total changed person. You're jivan mukta. Though you are living, still you are free. You don't have to die for going to some altered state of existence. Here itself. Now you can realize that. So that's the thing which is being asserted by this Vedanta. So that's the tena atyantika. And then when that happens, then all the misery falls off from you. Because nothing can affect you. You are not getting identified with anything. Though it's not that there won't be any misery. They will be there. The dualities of life will continue. But it will lose the power to any way affect me. They won't affect me. The way when I see some other person enjoying or suffering, I'm just seeing, I'm observing. I don't feel exactly the way he's feeling. I'm just observing. The same thing happens with my own personality. My own psychophysical existence becomes something objective. Just like any other object, I can observe it. I become the witness. And it doesn't affect me at all. So real spirituality is not something like an anesthesia. That when I go to the realization, I come back, I don't feel the joys and miseries of life. It's nothing like that. It's not anesthesia. I don't become inert. They're still there. But there's a detachment. It doesn't affect me. I know it's all are of the body-mind complex, not of me. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that you become like a ripened coconut. When the coconut is green, unripe, it is almost impossible to separate the kernel from the shell. They're all intertwined. And when it gets ripe, the kernel gets separated from the shell. You take it in your hand, the dry coconut, the ripened coconut, and you just shake it, you can find that the kernel has got separated from the shell. It is making noise. So that's the idea. So when you go to the realization, you witness, but at the same time, you have developed that idea that you are not the body-mind complex. You are something separate from it. You are just witnessing it. You are not in any way identified with it. And that's how you go beyond all the dualities in the form of joy and suffering. So that's the idea. So what's the way? The way is vichara. So we should not confuse vichara with the ordinary way of argument which we generally have when we are studying Vedanta. We discuss with each other, we hold on to certain point, and we with our intellect somehow may win in the argument and think that I am the one who have understood. Know it for certain that understanding is not the real understanding which has been spoken of here. One has to meditate on it till the ego is totally obliterated, taking him to a realization. And from that state, when he comes down, now he is a total transformed person. Nothing can affect him. So that's the thing which has been spoken of in the 45th verse. So, but to develop this wonderful quality, to develop this capacity of vichara, what are the things which are required? What are the wonderful qualities that are required? That will be spoken of in the next verse. So there are three things: Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yogat. Very interesting. This is a scripture of Jnana, and where Shankaracharya is speaking of Bhakti, Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yoga. So what actually is Bhakti? That we will try to understand. Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yogat, Mumukshoho. Mukte hetun vakti shakshat srutergi. Yah va eteshu eva tishthyati amushya. Moksha avidya kalpitat deha bandhat. So, through the process of Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yoga, a mumuksha, an aspirant, mukte hetu, for attainment of mukti, liberation, he follows this process of Shraddha, Bhakti and Dhyana, following the Shruti, Shrutegi, what has been spoken of in the Shruti. So, faith, devotion and yoga of meditation, these are mentioned by the Shruti as the immediate factors of liberation. Shakshat, immediate factors of liberation for a seeker, for a mukshu. And then, yah va eteshu eva tishtati amushya moksha avidya kalpitat deha bandhat. So, whoever abides in these, yah va eteshu eva tishtati, means he makes this his life. Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. Actually, we will find one follows the other. The Shraddha results in Bhakti, Bhakti results in Dhyana. So the one who has made these his be-all and end-all of existence, one who resides in this. So for him what happens? Moksha avidya kalpitat deha bandhat. He gets liberation from the ignorance which has resulted in this imagination, this idea that I am this body-mind complex, this binding, this bondage within this body-mind complex, which is the product of ignorance, that gets obliterated. So whoever abides in these gets liberation from the bondage of the body, which is the product of ignorance. Avidya kalpita. So what it is speaking of? So in the last sloka we find that vichara, which is results from Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasa. Now here he is saying Shraddha, Bhakti, that and Dhyana. So what is this? So in the last sloka we indicated that after hearing the words of the scriptures from your Guru, you should have that faith in the words of scripture, in the words of Guru. Then only that can result in Nididhyasana. Manana, Nididhyasana. If you don't have faith, then at the very beginning you won't take seriously those words. It's almost like going to a doctor. When I go to the doctor, I have faith in the medical science. And I know the doctor is an authority of the medical science. So I need not go and ask him that explain me what has happened and how that medicine works, all the prescriptions works. We never ask. The doctor prescribes and we just start our treatment based on the prescription of the doctor. Why? Because we have faith. We know that this medical science is something authentic and this doctor is an authorized person. He has already studied it. So faith in the scripture, medical scripture, and for here the teacher is the doctor. So the doctor is the one who is the authority. He has studied it thoroughly. So here also the scriptures are there, and my Guru is the one who is going to cure me from the disease called Bhavaroga. Bhavaroga Vyadhi. The disease of worldliness, that I think myself to this body-mind complex and relate with this world, with that idea. This is the Roga, disease. What is the nature of the disease? Any disease, what is the nature? The nature of the disease is your consciousness gets localized. See, when I am healthy, I am not aware of any particular part of my body. The health throbs through the entire body. Just see a child just bubbling with health. It's not aware of any particular part of the body. When we say we are diseased, then when our ease has gone, when our consciousness gets localized, awareness. I say I have a headache. So my entire awareness is now localized in the head. When the health was there, it was percolating the entire body. Now it got localized in my head. I have a heartache. My knees are paining. My joints are paining. So you find the awareness is getting localized. That speaks of the disease. Why the scripture says that this worldly existence is a disease? Because I am that non-dual consciousness, all pervading. But now it has got localized in this particular psychophysical existence. And now that's why the ease has gone. I have become diseased. So anywhere, when our awareness gets localized, that speaks of disease. So we are in the disease state. The moment we are bound to be born in this psychophysical existence, that speaks of the disease of worldliness in the spiritual sense. So, to get rid of that from the Deha Bandha, so what's the thing? Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. Shraddha, that when I have faith in the words of my Guru, then only I, through the process of manana, come to an intellectual conviction, and then I start meditating on the intellectual conviction. Now, where the bhakti comes, it's very important. Know it for certain, without bhakti, there cannot be real nididhyasana, meditation. As an aspirant at the initial stages, we all think that mental resolution is the important factor in meditation. That I sit for meditation, I say to my mind that you are not allowed to think of any other thought, just be focused on the idea of, or the ideal of your meditation. And constantly we have to, as if like like disciplinarian, I have to discipline my mind. Yes, in the initial stage it is correct. But when you start meditation, because of your Shraddha, the Guru has told you something, and as you have faith in his words, you take that practice seriously and go on doing again and again, again and again. Whether you like it or not, you go on doing as prescribed by him in the morning, in the evening. Then what happens, you will find, suddenly you have started developing a liking for that practice. Now, whether it is Aham Brahmasmi, that I am the Atman, or whether it is the idea that I am a devotee of the God, I am taking God's name. In both the case, that love for that practice should come. And it do come, at the beginning it is resolution. But when you go on practicing, you find that you have developed a love for it. And that's devotion. How it happens? It happens because of the neuroplasticity of our mind. That out of necessity, whatever we do, again and again, it creates a path in my mind because of that repeated practice. And once the path is created, once the groove is formed, your mind is wired, you forget about the necessity. You develop an obsession for doing it. All our obsessions are developed that way. So knowing this nature of mind, that what I do again and again, that creates a path in the mind, and once the path is created, I develop an obsession for it. The same thing is used here. So because of Shraddha, faith in the words of Guru, you took it seriously and took the resolution that I will practice in the morning and the evening the contemplation of my real nature, that I am the conscious principle, I am the Atman, I am the Brahman. At the beginning it's a resolution. When you go on doing, then that love develops. And that love is being called bhakti. Whether it is the love for contemplation on yourself or it is the love for the contemplation on particular deity. Both are bhakti. Bhakti speaks of that emotion. And when that has happened, then only the meditation becomes spontaneous. It becomes something very, very effective. It becomes like a flow. That's the real meditation. Without love, there cannot be real meditation. As we say again and again, that the mother never has to meditate on the child lest she forget her. The love for the child makes her remember the child, think of the child always, even when she is busy. A part of the mind is always remembering the child, thinking of the child. Why? The love is there. So when love is there, meditation becomes spontaneous. It's the thought that you are the self or you are a devotee of God. That's always there. That is always there, engaging a part of your mind. It is always there. It is constantly like a flow, it is there. And that's the real meditation. That results in effective nididhyasana. And that is what is spoken of as dhyana. So now see, it is just one. If you have Shraddha, that Shraddha will result in Bhakti, and Bhakti alone can result in effective meditation, dhyana. And when this dhyana is really effective, then only you can knock out that ego, as we were speaking of in the last sloka. And that alone can take you to that realization. So now you will understand that how wonderful sequential it is. Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yogat, Mumukshoho, Mukte Hetu. This is the only reason for the Mukti. These three practices will take you to the Mukti, and these are sequential. Shraddha is followed by Bhakti, Bhakti is followed by real Dhyana, intense Dhyana, and that Dhyana can take you to the realization. Yah va eteshu eva tishtati. The one who can reside in this. Amushya, moksha, avidya kalpitat, deha bandhat. That's the same reason. When the ego the ego is removed, annihilated, the entire your personality, which is like the will, your psychophysical existence, is like the will. When the hub is taken out, all the spikes collapses. Deha bandha, gone. Your deha bandhat has gone. That again and again we give that example, that renunciation is something which happens in one go. Generally the idea is, I will renounce one by one. I have this desire, let me take care of it, then I will take care of another desire. That way we can never get rid of all the desires. They're innumerable. They have to happen in one go. And that's the through nididhyasana, when you are getting rid of the ego. As that story we say again and again, Sri Ramakrishna stories are wonderful. That one day he was saying, what he's saying, in a village, a village man was going to take a dip in the village pond in the noon time. Before his meals, he was going to have a dip, and suddenly his wife called him back and told, "Oh, you are so attached." The neighbor has developed a tremendous detachment. He has developed a tremendous renunciation. The man asked, What have you seen in him that you are saying that he has developed renunciation? And then it's a very funny story. Then the wife says he has 12 wives and he's renouncing them one by one. And that man says immediately, "You are fool. Do you think anyone can renounce one by one? Do you want to know what renunciation is?" Now see, this man was going to take a dip in the village pond, so he was just having a loincloth and a towel in his shoulder, nothing else. He told, "I am leaving once for all. You can never see me." And he goes, leaves the village, and no one can trace him out where he has gone. So he doesn't come back to pack his belongings, to take some money or nothing. The renunciation comes in a flash. That's the idea. It cannot happen one by one. So this real renunciation is, yes, I'm going once for all. You want to see renunciation? That's the thing. The idea is, so that's the idea that which is spoken of here. So kalpitat deha bandhat, that entire thing falls off. When through Shraddha results in Bhakti, that Bhakti results in real Dhyana, and that Dhyana enables you to get rid of the hub of your personality in the form of ego, and immediately the Deha Bandha, all the things which are keeping you bound in this body-mind complex, all those innumerable samskaras, they all fall off once at a time, taking you to that realization. So one who can reside in this practice, Shraddha, Bhakti and Dhyana Yoga. So for him alone the realization is. So Sravana leads to Manana only if one has Shraddha. So let us recapitulate the idea. If you have Shraddha, faith in the words of Guru, then only you will resort to the practice. Otherwise you won't resort to the practice. So this Shraddha leads to Bhakti, and then when you resort to the practice, then what happens? That emotion develops. At the beginning it is resolution. It's a will. My Guru has told me I have faith in his word and I go on practicing. He has prescribed in the morning, in the evening, whenever you get time, or keep a part of your mind always in that thought. He has told and I am trying my best to do it. At the beginning it is will, but when you do it again and again, a path is created in your mind. And once the path is created, you start loving it. That's the nature of the mind. That whenever a path is created because of repeated practice, once that it's created, you start loving to traverse that path. You forget the necessity. Just traversing becomes your obsession. So here also the same thing happens. And once that you have developed that love for practicing, that's bhakti. Even the one who is meditating on the idea, I am Brahman, he is also a bhakta. When that repetition, he has developed love for that. He has developed, then that speaks of the bhakti. That's why in Vivekachudamani also bhakti has been defined. So now with that bhakti, when he still goes on meditating, now the meditation has become real effective. No more resolution is there. No more willpower is there. It has got converted into emotion. And that emotion only can help you to enter into a state of flow. That's the real dhyana. So when manana leads to nididhyasana, then bhakti is generated. And it is not mere mental resolution, but bhakti which alone results in dhyana yoga. That's the thing we were saying. It's not a resolution. It has got converted into your devotion. And then this dhyana yoga results in the dissolution of the ego, which is the product of ignorance. And with the dissolution of the ego, all mental module collapses, resulting in liberation. That has been spoken of as Deha Bandha. This, from the ignorance, this Deha Bandha has developed, and that goes off in one go. So now Vedanta says that we are Brahman, the infinite non-local consciousness. And this knowledge will come to us through these disciplines, which destroy ignorance completely. So what's the effect? That will be spoken of in the next sloka. So that's what we are told. There's an overview of the thing which we are going to study in the succeeding slokas. They will take us categorically, one step by step, through a very detailed discussion. The rest of the Vivekachudamani will be discussing this, what has been spoken of in these 3 slokas as a general overview. So what's the effect, what's the result? That has been spoken of in the 47th verse. So Ajnana Yogat Paramatmana tavahi anatma bandha tatah eva sangsritihi. Tayo viveka udita bodhavanhi ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. So, ajnana yogat. Because of your attachment, touch with the ignorance, touch of ignorance. It is verily through the touch of ignorance that you, who are the Supreme Self, Paramatma, you are the Supreme Self, find yourself under the bondage of the non-self. So it is because of the ignorance, the Paramatman is finding himself in the shackles of this bondage. And when the Viveka arises, Tayo Viveka Udita, and that bondage results in what? Sangsriti. Sangsriti is what? Sangsriti means samsara, this cycle of birth and death, the flow. Once you are bound in this body, it results in transmigration. You have so many bodies we take, that we are born in a particular body, we go through certain experiences, die, and again we take birth in some other body, and that goes on, cycle after cycle. That's what's meant by sangsriti. So, the moment you are bound in this idea that you are not the self, you are this body-mind complex, this sangsriti is bound to follow. And the moment viveka arises, tayo viveka udita bodhavanhi ajnana karyam pradahet. Pradahet means burns, samulam. From its very root, it is the moment that viveka arises, the ignorance is burned from its root. And then there is no more transmigration. You get one with the self. So what's the idea? That as long as the ignorance is there, we have to transmigrate. Life after life, in so many bodies. How it happens. Why it happens. So even in Vedanta, Swami Vivekananda told that we do believe in evolution. But that evolution is something which is cyclic. It is not a straight line. That's the only difference. In science, the so-called, in our biological science, we think of evolution which is like a straight line. That all these creatures are evolving. Where it will end, no one knows. It's going on a straight line. But Swamiji says in Vedanta, the idea of evolution is cyclic. We start from the self, at last we again return back to the self. Why this entire process, this biological evolution is happening? Because of ignorance. The entire biological evolution is because of ignorance. How? Just take a small microbe from where we have evolved through innumerable bodies. We die as a microbe, another take a body, and then we most probably evolve to some other higher creatures, and that's how at last we get this human body. And this is the process which is going on. Why it's happening? Because of ignorance. The entire biological evolution is because of ignorance. What's the ignorance? Just take a microbe body. The Atman, the Brahman, the non-local consciousness gets reflected in that microbe body. And now the self is saying, I am eternal. And that is echoed from that microbe body. I am eternal. And the self identifies with the echo. Now I'm standing in front of a mountain. I just shout out my name. My name is echoed back. I think someone from the mountain is just calling my name. That's what we feel. The same thing, that ignorance originates from there. The self is being reflected in that microbe body. The self is saying, I am eternal. That echo is coming from the microbe body, I am eternal. And now the self thinks, the microbe body gets identified with it. As it is coming from there, it thinks that microbe body is eternal. Thinking that, it now really tries to be eternal. A little change of stimuli will kill it. So what you will find, when you give some nutrient, it is drawn towards it. If you give some poison, it is running away from it. Why? Because it knows that nutrient will sustain, will nourish its body, and through that it can enjoy eternity. The toxin will kill it. Someone is saying that you are eternal, but it cannot be realized. So this identification with the body results in all the stimuli response conditioning. One by one, all the likings, dislike, fear, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, everything is developing from that ignorance. The self who is already eternal, free, fulfilled, nothing is required for him. The moment it gets reflected in that microbe body, it starts thinking that as a microbe body I am eternal. From this idea, now it has to fight that it wants to stay eternal. That how the biological evolution has happened. Now the single microbe body, to cope up with the nature in a much better way, because it always feels that I am eternal, I am eternal, I am fulfilled. To really realize that, now it's fighting with the nature, because he finds the nature doesn't allow him to really enjoy that idea of eternity. So it's fighting. How it fights? It now starts conglomerating. That one single cell will be conglomerating with so many other cells. They will form a group. Already renunciation has started. That I previously was as a single cell was in one individual. Now as a group we are individual. As if we are diffusing our individuality. Why? So that I can fight with the nature. Unconsciously some renunciation is happening. How I can fight? Let there be division of labor. So at last when we have evolved to human body, we find there's a wonderful division of labor. There's certain, my heart cells are just circulating the blood. My lung cells, are they meant for that respiration, digestion? So many things are happening. The brain, the nervous activity, all these, the endocrinal glands. So all these various organs with the division of labor. How it came? From that fight against nature. I want to be eternal. Something is saying within me, I'm eternal. I have to realize that in this body-mind complex. As a human being, at last, when that Viveka Udita, we are the only creature who has that unique capacity to go to that realization that I'm already fulfilled. It is because of that ignorance I have identified with this body-mind complex, and I was trying to realize the eternity and the fulfillment which already I am in that physical body through which I am identified. And that's resulted in all the entire evolution. The moment I realize that I am already fulfilled, I am already eternal, this useless struggle that falls off. Now I develop the detachment that no more. What is the need? I am already fulfilled. It is because of my out of ignorance, because of my attachment, this body with the body-mind complex, I was having the idea of realizing eternity in the psychophysical existence, which is never possible. But at the same time, I am already eternal. And then this vairagya from the Viveka, the vairagya, the renunciation comes. And with this, what happens? At last, I started as a self. And because of ignorance, this entire biological evolution happened. And when this Viveka arises, now my journey again back to my unadulterated, pure self, that starts taking me to that ultimate realization. So now you will find that what a wonderful idea has been spoken of. It is because of ajnana. As long as we are associated with the ajnana, yajnana yogat, paramatma, tavahi anatma bandha, tata eva sangskriti. And that's why this process has started. Sangskriti is going on for lives together. And then tayo viveka, but when the viveka comes, now you are going back. The cycle, the journey which was coming downwards, now again it starts upwards. Once the Viveka arises. Tayo Viveka Udita Bodhavanhi. It's like the fire, the Bodha. There your awareness that you are the self. This idea is the Bodhavanhi. It's like the fire which can burn off ajnana. Ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. From its very root, the ajnana is being burnt out. Just, Sri Ramakrishna is giving a very nice example. Just take a seed. It was lying on the terrace of your house maybe for years together. And one day a strong wind comes and the seed is blown away and it falls in the ground and it germinates. Why? The seed was alive. It was having life. So it will be germinating. So ignorance, that seed, why it germinates? Because the seed of ignorance is still there. But now you think you have roasted that seed. That seed has been roasted. Now if you put it in the ground, will it sprout? It was not going to sprout. You have roasted it. So similarly, when the ajnana is being roasted, the seed of ignorance has been roasted, it can no more sprout. It has lost the capacity to sprout. You go back to to your original self. It is just like this going back to your real nature, to your own home. So that's the idea which has been spoken of here. So it's a cycle. From absolute we come, to the absolute we return, and once we become aware that we are already the absolute and we need nothing to realize our infinitude. We're already that. There is no need to evolve in that psychophysical existence to really. So this happens because of ignorance. When the ignorance falls off, automatically you again get. It is not something called attainment. You're not attaining anything. Spirituality is not something attaining. It is just regaining the thing which you have forgotten. It is actually recapitulation. It is just that you have forgotten. In the Vedanta they say that it's a chamikarna, that someone was wearing a necklace. A lady is wearing necklace and she is very busy with the household work, and the necklace most probably got covered with the sari which she is wearing. And so suddenly she looks and finds the necklace is not there, and she starts frantically searching where the necklace has gone. And then someone points out, it is there. Wow, what a funny person you are. It is there in your, around your neck. And then she removes the sari and finds out it's there. It got obscured and she was forgetful about it. It's not something she has to attain. It is always with her. The self is always with us. That's why in Bhagavad Gita we will find that whenever the question of attainment of self comes, they never use the word prapti. Prapti means the thing which you don't have, you have to get it. That is prapti. They always use the word apti. Apti means the thing which is already with you. You were forgetful about it. So now again you have become aware of it. So, and then once you become aware of it, the ignorance falls off. Just like waking up from the dream state. When you are sleeping, you are in the dream state, you are awake. And then you find, oh, it was all just a dream. I am the same person who was before I went to sleep. The one who went to sleep, when I wake up, I'm the same person. In the dream, I saw so many things. So many changes were happening. Most probably I was attacked by someone. I was injured. And then I wake up and find, no, I'm okay. Nothing has happened. So that's what happens with the self when it again regains its remembrance. It remembers its real nature. And then all the ignorance falls off and the Deha Bandha falls off. The ignorance falls off. The ignorance from its very root is as if burnt off. It loses the capacity, the power to sprout again. So that's the entire spiritual journey which has been spoken of as an overview in these 3 slokas. So till now we have noted that some of the essential points of the spiritual life which was discussed in a general way. That's what has been discussed. So now begins after this the beautiful dialogue between the teacher and the disciple, through which the different steps of self-realization in details will be undertaken. The disciple put forth some 7 fundamental questions, and in the process of answering, the Guru will go through the entire Vivekachudamani, taking this disciple step by step to the process of set self-realization. So that we will again start from the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.